Since I was working a full-time job, that was my goal. I wanted to acquire as many customers as possible with the most amount of properties. That way I could replace my full-time income.
Let's go forward to when you start running into the larger Sonics.
It came to the point where I just absolutely dreaded doing them.
In today's video, my buddy Chris is going to tell you how he underbid one of his first and biggest striping customers, where he lost his ass on 11 Sonic restaurants. And if you stay until the end, I'm going to share with you guys one of my strategies that I've implemented in my own business that prevents this from happening. So Chris and I were talking this morning, we were texting back and forth, and he was telling me about these jobs that he got, and it was a huge score. And so if you guys don't know Chris has a line striping business. He's also got a YouTube channel. He also has put together one of the best striping courses that is out there. It's what, over 8 hours of on-site stuff, equipment walkthroughs, how to get customers, basically everything that he has learned, he's put into this training program. And with all of that being said, Chris has got some pretty amazing techniques that he's developed. And I am an old person, and I've been doing this for a long time. And I kind of pride myself on being really good at marketing, really good at sales, but you can teach an old dog new tricks. And Chris actually taught me something, and I'm not going to share it here, but this little magic trick that he has developed and kind of refined landed him. How many of these Sonics did you land from this?
We got 12 of them from this one.
Okay, 12 Sonic restaurants, all of the striping. Do you do any pressure washing prior to, or is it just the striping?
No, we just do the line striping for the Sonics, but we do the pressure washing for the Waffle Houses.
Okay, so, and how many Waffle Houses did you get?
We have 11 of those.
So you've got all the Sonics, you've got a bunch of Waffle Houses. The funny thing is, and when Chris was telling me at first when he landed all these, you know, this was a while back. It was when kind of at the beginning of his striping business. And like we talk about all the time, there is a very strategic way we go about pricing, right? When you've been in business for a lot longer, when you've got a ton of leads coming in, your pricing structure is a little bit different. However, when Chris landed these jobs, he was pretty new. So tell the story, because this is great.
Right. Yeah, no, it is really good. And it was actually funny how it happened. Whenever I first started, I was working 2 jobs, actually. And so I didn't have time to go out and knock doors. I didn't have time to go reach out. I could cold call, and that was pretty much it. So what I did was I used a proven strategy of customer acquisition that we actually teach in the course of how to get in contact directly with property owners. And as a result of utilizing that strategy, I was able to acquire my first big customer. Since I was working a full-time job, that was my goal. I wanted to acquire as many customers as possible with the most amount of properties. That way I could replace my full-time income fast. So my objective was to get one customer that would have 10 properties, 15 properties, 11 properties. And then that way I could have that reoccurring income coming in. The Sonics were my first big franchise. And so I was super excited. He asked if I would give him a quote. And so I gave him a quote, and I looked at a couple of places, and the places that I looked at were small. I mean, they were Sonics, 10, 15 lines, no big deal.
Right.
Which added up to about $425. So long story short, after we kind of signed the deal and he gave me all the properties to do, I did all the small ones, but then I started running into a bunch of big ones. And the Sonics that we're doing.
Let me interrupt you. So for the 450 for a small Sonic, how much time would you be on site, and like the material costs for a smaller Sonic? Give me a ballpark.
We'll probably be on site for about an hour.
Okay.
Probably, you know, for a smaller Sonic, we'll be on site for about an hour. I'll use about $60 in paint, if that. And then my labor cost will be $30, $35, $40. So we could probably get 3 or 4 done in a night. No big deal.
Right. So 3 or 4 in a night at 450, minimal costs as far as your materials, labor, and so a highly profitable, quote based on the smaller Sonics. So let's go forward to when you start running into the larger Sonics.
Right. Yeah. And it was crazy. Of course, the larger Sonics have full wraps. I mean, you have the lines, you have the hash markings, and then you have the fire lane that's all the way on the outside. And so when I actually started doing the larger Sonics, I was running into difficulties, because at that time, whenever I first acquired that customers, whenever I started off, but then we ended up exploding after that. I mean, we really did. We ended up exploding and growing. And then it came to the point where I just absolutely dreaded doing them, because every single Sonic that I did, I would lose money on. For the large ones with the full wraps and the fire lanes, it would cost $400 in paint. And so, which I should have been charging about $1,200 to $1,300 on those ones, which luckily there's only a few, and it was a lesson learned. So we got about maybe 2 or 3 more left to do. I just built them with 2 last night. So we're almost done with him. So I told him that whenever we go into the next year, that I'm actually going to charge him almost triple than what I did. So
right. I was just at a quote today, and I was giving an estimate on roof cleaning, right? For an apartment complex, they've got 18 buildings. Now, there are, I think, 2 different size buildings. But when I give an estimate, I'm like, hey, it's going to be $800 per roof. And they're like, well, that building's bigger. And I was like, yeah, but it all evens out in the end, the price you're going to pay. So you send over the $450 per restaurant, and he jumped on it immediately, right?
Yeah, he sure did.
So he knew that he was getting a good deal. Probably at the end of it all, it sounds like it probably wasn't a profitable endeavor, or was it more of a break even because you did have a bunch of the smaller ones where you actually did make money?
I mean, it was a break even, but it was a learning experience, because when you're first getting started and you're not skilled at marketing, you're not skilled at customer acquisition. You know, I went from making $10 cooking chicken and working out in the woods for a land surveyor. So this was all still new to me. And so I was so desperate in the early beginning stages. But since then, we've learned, and we continue to grow today.
Yeah, and we always say that the more leads that you have coming in, the higher your prices are going to be. The more sales that you're able to close, the higher your prices are going to be, because we're not going to work for cheap when we don't have to, when we've got customers that are willing to pay us more for the same service. And people, I hear all the time, they're like, well, it's people first, people over profits. And that is completely unacceptable when you're running a business. Again, pricing is pretty fluid. You know, we can all talk about, obviously you have to cover your costs, right? We are not in business to break even. We are not in business just to get by. We are in business to make money. That is why we get up. That is why we decide we're going to work for ourselves. Like right now, it's a little bit slower. It's almost Christmas. People are not focused on the exteriors of the home other than some Christmas lights and some things like that. So it slows down. And guess what happens when it slows down? My prices come down a little bit. I'm a little bit more flexible in what we're willing to do, because I want to keep my employees busy. I want to keep money coming in, and it might be a little less money, but it's still money. And that is important for a business, right? You got to have that cash flow. And so it's a lesson learned. And we've all had these lessons. If you've been in business long enough, you have underbid something. You've done a phenomenal job with your business. And I'm glad you were able to come on the channel and spend a little time with us and share one of your funny stories, because everybody can learn from that, right? But Chris, thank you so much for being on the channel. And if you guys have not checked it out, or maybe if you're interested in adding an additional service, this is a great niche service. Go check out How to Stripe. There is a link down in the comment section and the description. And this is a phenomenal program, over 8 hours long. So Chris, thank you so much for your knowledge and your time. And go check out his channel. There will be a link for that down there below too.